They didn't just glare at me, they yelled. "Security!" my daughter-in-law shrieked across the ballroom. "This old woman is not on the guest list. Get her out before she ruins my daughter's wedding." The string quartet stopped mid-note. Heads turned. A waiter froze with a tray of champagne in mid-air. The manager walked over, eyes flicking from her to me. "Mrs. Price," he asked quietly, "do you want me to cancel their open bar first, or shut down the DJ?" My daughter-in-law went dead silent, because in that moment she realized the one thing she'd never bothered to find out. I wasn't a random old woman. I was the one who owns the entire country club. If you're listening to this, make sure you subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. My name is Helen Price. I'm 70 years old, and this is the story of how my entitled daughter-in-law tried to erase me from my granddaughter's life at a wedding I paid for in a building that legally belongs to me, and how that disaster of a day actually saved my family. To understand what happened, you need to know how we got here. My son Mark married Kara 8 years ago. She was stunning, sharp, and walked into every room like it already belonged to her. Mark adored her from the start. Me, I had reservations. At our very first dinner, she smiled at my thrift store curtains and said, "Vintage is so brave, Helen." I've been around long enough to translate that. Cheap. Tacky, not how I'd live. I decided to give her a chance anyway. I didn't raise my boy alone just to lose him to petty drama. But over time, the little comments piled up. "Mark, your mom doesn't really understand boundaries. Helen, you should let us handle big decisions. You just relax and enjoy retirement. We can't keep driving all the way across town. It's too much with our schedule." You know how it goes. Suddenly, visits went from every Sunday to once a month to, "We're so busy, maybe after the holidays." The only one who didn't pull away was my granddaughter, Lily. From the time she was 5, she'd call me on a cheap little phone Kara didn't know she had given her. "Grandma, Mom says you're tired." "I am old," I'd tell her, "but I'm not that tired. I always have energy for you." By the time Lily was 12, she and I had secret ice cream dates, secret walks in the park, secret birthday presents from Fairy. Kara didn't like me, but she didn't control every inch of the world. Not yet. 2 years before the wedding, everything shifted. I was still living in my little house, clipping coupons, driving my 12-year-old Corolla. What no one knew was that behind that quiet life, something outrageous had happened. On a Tuesday afternoon in March, I walked into a gas station to buy milk and walked out with a winning lottery ticket worth $64 million. I nearly dropped my dentures when the numbers matched. Most people would scream it from the rooftops. I did the opposite. I paid a lawyer, put everything into a trust under a boring-sounding company name, met with a financial advisor who looked like he'd faint when he saw the amount, and then I did something people didn't expect from a 68-year-old widow. I invested. I bought apartment buildings, stocks, bonds, a chunk of the very grocery chain where I'd been a cashier for 30 years. And because my heart is sentimental, I quietly bought a controlling share of Willow Creek Country Club, the fancy place across town where I'd once waitressed weddings to pay my way through school. I still lived in my modest house. I still shopped with coupons. Only my lawyer, my banker, and the IRS knew the truth. I wanted to see who loved me, not my bank account. Spoiler alert, it was not Kara.
Lily grew up, and before I knew it, my little secret ice cream partner was 22 and engaged to a sweet boy named Ethan. She came to my house the night after he proposed, still wearing the ring, cheeks pink with excitement. "Grandma," she said, twisting the ring, "I know Mom doesn't like me bothering you, but can I tell you a secret dream?" "Of course," I said. "Grandmas are basically professional secret keepers." "I've always wanted to get married at Willow Creek Country Club," she said in a rush. "I know we could never afford it, but when I was little and you drove me past, I used to imagine walking down their staircase in a big dress." She kept talking, describing the chandeliers, the terrace, the string lights she'd seen in photos. I listened, my heart aching with both love and mischief. "Lily," I said when she finished, "if Willow Creek was possible, would you still want it, even if your parents could never take the credit?" She hesitated, then grinned guiltily. "Yes, but Mom would never. She says places like that are for old money people." "Old money, new money, who cares? Money all falls the same." "Take care of your studies and your fiancé," I told her. "Let me worry about floors and chandeliers." The next morning I called Carl, the general manager of Willow Creek. "Good morning, Mrs. Price," he said, "or should I say Miss Willow Creek Holdings?" He loved that joke. I pretended to hate it. "I hear my granddaughter is getting married," I said. "I'd like her wedding to be here. Give her parents the standard pricing and terms, book the date, send them the contract, copy the holding company. I'll handle the extras." "What kind of extras?" he asked. "The kind where she never sees a bill for the upgraded menu, open bar, live band, or the string quartet she's been pinning on Pinterest since she was 15, I said. "And Carl, no one tells her I paid or owns the place. I want her to believe in miracles for at least one day." He laughed. "Yes, ma'am. Consider it done." Within a week, Mark and Kara had an email from the club about an opening on the date Lily wanted. Kara's social media lit up with posts. "Can't believe we snagged Willow Creek. Manifestation works, ladies." Manifestation, right. I guess that's what we're calling deeply discounted granddaughter packages now. The official wedding invitations came 2 months later. Lily dropped one off herself, cheeks pink. "Grandma, before you open it, I have to tell you something." She sat at my tiny kitchen table. I made tea. You don't have heavy conversations standing up. You'll fall over. "Mom is being Mom," she said. "She insisted on handling the guest list. She put your address on a B list and then said there wasn't enough room." My fingers tightened around the envelope. I already knew. I'd heard nothing from Kara, but hearing Lily say it still hurt. "You were always on my list," Lily whispered. "So I'm inviting you myself. I will come drag you out of your house in my wedding dress if I have to." I looked at the invitation. My name wasn't there. They'd actually printed proper invitations and just left me off. No Miss Helen Price and guest. No nothing. Just Mr. and Mrs. Mark Price, Miss Lily Price, and Ethan's family. It took me a moment to be able to see the letters again. "Lily," I said slowly, "does your mother know you're here?" "Not exactly," she admitted. "She thinks you won't come anyway. She says you're too fragile for big events." Fragile. I had survived poverty, childbirth, widowhood, 2 back surgeries, and raising a son who dated women with more filters than personality. But sure, fragile. I'll be there, on one condition. Anything. You let me walk in quietly, sit at the back, and enjoy the day. No scenes, no drama. The only tears I want at your wedding are over how handsome your groom looks. Lily threw her arms around me. Deal. I just need you there, Grandma. That's my wish. If only wishes and plans ever matched reality. The day of the wedding was bright and cold, the kind of October day that makes the leaves glow. I put on my dark green dress, the one with sleeves that hide my bingo wing arms but still looks elegant. Pearl earrings, real pearls, though no one knew that but me. I drove my old Corolla up the long driveway to my country club, parked between a Tesla and a rented limo, and laughed to myself. Inside, everything was as I'd ordered. White roses and eucalyptus on every table, a live string quartet in the corner, a chocolate fountain that looked like it had escaped from a cooking show. Lily came down the staircase in my old lace wedding dress, altered, modernized, and somehow even more beautiful on her. We both cried. She kept saying thank you, and I kept pretending it was about the dress, not the entire building she was standing in. The ceremony went perfectly. They said their vows under the oak tree, everyone clapped, and we moved into the ballroom for the reception. That's when Kara saw me. She was posted by the head table like a queen on her throne, holding court with Ethan's relatives about how tricky it had been to book Willow Creek. It helped that we're members, she was saying, laughing. They don't just take anyone, you know. Then her gaze slid across the room and landed on me, where I sat at a corner table, sipping champagne and minding my own retirement business. Her smile froze. Her entire body stiffened. She excused herself and marched across the floor like a battleship in heels. "Helen," she said, using my name like it had a bad taste, "what are you doing here?" I smiled politely, the grandmother smile, the one that hides claws. "Hello, Kara. I'm here to watch my granddaughter get married, of course. She looks beautiful, doesn't she?" Kara's eyes narrowed. "Lily invited you?" "I did." "She had no authority to do that," replied Kara, voice tightening. "Mark and I handled the guest list. We decided it would be less stressful for everyone if you didn't attend." I nodded slowly. "You're right about one thing. This is stressful. Mostly for you, I suspect." Her nostrils flared. "This isn't about me. This is about boundaries. You weren't on the list. Guests saw you come in and assumed you were somebody's aunt, but I know better." A few guests nearby had gone quiet. Forks hovered over plates. You could feel the hum of curiosity. "Kara," I said softly, "Lily asked me to be here. She wanted her granddaughter at her wedding." "And I wanted my wedding to go smoothly. We can't just have," her eyes flicked over my dress, "people wandering in off the street. This isn't some community hall. This is Willow Creek." My club, I thought, but I didn't say it. Not yet. Instead, I gave her one last out. "If it upsets you, I can speak to management. We'll work something out quietly." A decent person would have taken that off-ramp. Kara doubled down. "I already spoke to management," she lied. "They know exactly who paid for this event. They know who's in charge. Security will escort you out if I ask. And frankly, Helen," she added, raising her voice so half the room could hear, "I'd rather not watch you cling to Lily on my day. It's embarrassing."
My fingers tightened on my glass. My day. Not Lily's, not her daughter's, hers. "Please don't do this in front of everyone," I said quietly. She turned and waved at a passing waiter. "Excuse me, could you get your manager or the owner or whoever? We seem to have a wedding crasher." Several nearby heads whipped around. Someone actually gasped. The waiter's eyes met mine. Recognition flashed in them, quickly smoothed over by professional training. "Yes, ma'am," he said to Kara, then to me. "I'll just get Mr. Hayes." Kara folded her arms, triumphant. "You've been playing poor little grandmother for years. Time to learn there are consequences when you don't respect boundaries." I took a slow breath. 7 years of snubs, 7 years of being the babysitter, the emergency contact, the fallback plan, until she decided I wasn't shiny enough for their new lifestyle. 7 years of watching nice son shrink next to her ego. It all boiled up and then settled, because in that instant I knew tonight wasn't my humiliation. Tonight was her education. Mr. Hayes, the general manager, appeared within a minute. Nice suit, calm face, eyes that missed nothing. "Kara," he said politely, "what seems to be the problem?" "We have a gate crasher," she announced, gesturing at me. "This woman wasn't invited. She's not on the list. I need her removed before she ruins the photos." Several phones were already out. People pretended to be scrolling, but we all know how human beings are. If drama were oxygen, this room would have been on fire. Mr. Hayes looked at me. His respectful nod was small but unmistakable. "Good evening, Ms. Price," he said. "Are you enjoying yourself?" "Very much, thank you," I replied. Kara frowned. "Miss Price? You know her?" "Oh, yes," he said, "quite well." "Well, then this is perfect," Kara said, relieved. "Please explain your security policy to her. She wasn't invited and needs to leave." More silence, more eyes. Mr. Hayes hesitated, then turned slightly toward me. "Would you like to handle this, ma'am?" he asked. Kara blinked. "Ma'am?" I sighed. I'd hoped to let Lily have her fairy tale night and tell this story over coffee in a week, laughing about it. But Kara had insisted on making it a spectacle. So I stood, straightened my shoulders, and for the first time in years I stopped playing the harmless old lady and started being who I actually was. "Kara," I said, my voice carrying clearly over the clink of glassware, "I wanted to speak to the person in charge, so here I am." She rolled her eyes. "What are you talking about now?" I turned to Mr. Hayes. "Would you introduce me properly, please?" He nodded, hiding a smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ms. Helen Price. She is the primary owner of Willow Creek Country Club and the majority funder of tonight's event." You could have heard a napkin drop. Kara stared at me like I just announced I was the Queen of England. That's not funny," she stammered. "Helen lives in a tiny house on the east side, drives an old car, shops with coupons. Yes, dear, I am very familiar with the persona you've built for me." Mr. Hayes added, "Ms. Price purchased controlling interest in the club last year. All contracts go through her holding company." I let that sink in, watching faces shift, confusion, shock, laughter quickly suppressed. It took Kara a full 10 seconds to speak. "You mean to tell me," she said slowly, each word dripping, "that you've been sitting here at my daughter's wedding in a venue you own after I specifically didn't invite you?" "Oh, I was invited by your daughter. And as for been sitting here, yes, I was quite comfortable until someone started shouting for security." Mark finally appeared, face pale. "Mom," he breathed, "is this true?" "Yes," I said simply. "I won a very large lottery 2 years ago. I invested. One of those investments was this club." "You won the lottery?" he repeated faintly. "I did." "And you didn't tell us?" I shrugged. "You and Kara were adamant about not needing my help, remember? Kara actually told me, and I quote, 'We don't want your guilt money, Helen. We'll make our own way.'" A few guests shifted uncomfortably. They'd been at that dinner. Kara's hands curled into fists. "So you bought a country club," she spat, "and then what? Decided to crash our event as a power move?" I shook my head. "No, dear. I booked your event a year ago as a surprise for Lily. I covered the upgraded menu, the bar, the extra hours, the band. You paid the base rental fee." Mr. Hayes, ever helpful, added, "To be precise, the Prices are responsible for about 20% of tonight's charges. Ms. Price's account covers the remaining 80%. I smiled thinly. "So if you'd like to make the argument that whoever pays controls the guest list, we can certainly do that math." More murmurs. Someone actually laughed before choking it back into a cough. Kara's hands curled into fists. You told everyone we scraped together the money. You let us brag like idiots." "I let you feel proud," I corrected gently. "I wanted Lily to be proud of her parents. It never occurred to me that you'd be more proud of excluding me than including her grandmother." For a moment, her face softened. Then pride slammed the door shut again. "It doesn't matter," she said, raising her voice. "Owner or not, this is our family event. You weren't invited. You shouldn't be here." "Mom?" Lily's voice came from behind her. She'd pushed through the crowd, veil slightly askew. "What are you doing?" I could see the horror dawning as she took in the circle of people, the manager, the expressions. "Lily?" Kara said, forcing a smile that looked painful. "Go dance. I'm just handling a situation." "This situation is my grandmother," Lily said firmly. "I invited her. Why are you yelling at her?" Kara's composure cracked. She spun back to me. "You see what you're doing? You always do this. You make everyone feel sorry for you until they turn against me." "Actually," I said, "you're doing a pretty good job of that all by yourself." Kara's voice went shrill. "Fine," she said. "If you're so determined to be here, then let's make it simple." She grabbed Mark's arm. "Choose," she said loudly. "Either she leaves or we do. If she stays, we're gone, and so are your future grandkids. I will not be manipulated by this woman in my own family." The room froze. All eyes went to my son. Mark looked like a deer in headlights. His mouth opened and closed uselessly. "Kara," he started. "Now, Mark, I am your wife. We are your family. She had her turn. Are you going to let her control us forever?" Every muscle in my body hurt with the urge to say something cutting. Instead, I took a slow breath. This was the moment, the fork in the road, and I wasn't going to let my son be bullied into choosing in front of 100 witnesses. "Kara," I said quietly, "don't do this to him. Ultimatums are just threats with fancy wrapping paper." She whirled toward me. "Stay out of our marriage." "That," I replied, "is exactly what I've been doing. Maybe too much." I looked around at the crowd, then back at her. "You think money is how I control people. It isn't. It's how I tried to help people, because I grew up knowing what it's like to have nothing. But tonight, I learned something important. Generosity without boundaries isn't kindness. It's self-sabotage." "That doesn't even make sense," Kara snapped. "Oh, it will," I said, "in about 30 seconds.
I pulled my phone from my purse. You think I'm powerless? That I'm just an old woman desperate for your approval? You believe you can shout me out of my own granddaughter's wedding and threaten me with never seeing my family again? I opened my banking app. My lawyer would yell at me for doing business at a reception, but I was on a roll. The truth is this, I said. For the last 2 years, I have quietly paid off Lily's student loans, covered your missed mortgage payments when Mark's work slowed, and guaranteed the expansion loan for Mark's clinic. I've also prepaid your country club membership through the next 4 years. Gasps! Lily spun toward her father. Loans? Missed payments? Mark paled. Mom, you... what? I didn't want you to lose the house or the business you love. I never told you because I didn't want to embarrass you. I thought I was protecting your pride. Kara's face crumpled. You went behind my back? Oh no, I went behind your ego. Different thing entirely. I turned back to her. You gave me an ultimatum. Here's mine. You can apologize to me, to Lily, to every guest here for your behavior. Then we all take a breath, eat some cake, and finish this night celebrating a marriage instead of a meltdown. Or, I said, tapping my phone, you walk out, and tomorrow I call the bank, the club, and Mark's business partner and start undoing every safety net I tied under you without your knowledge. I let it hang there. Not a threat, a simple statement of boundaries. Either way, I added, I will no longer be funding the lifestyle of someone who treats me like garbage. Not because I'm vindictive, but because I've finally remembered my own worth.
For a long, painful moment, Kara just stood there, breathing hard. Then something broke. Not dramatically, no screaming, just a sag in her shoulders, like an overloaded shelf finally giving way. I hate you, she whispered, not shouting, not for the crowd, just for me. I hate how you make me feel small. That honesty surprised me more than anything else she'd said. Excuse me? I asked quietly. You show up with money and solutions, and everyone looks at you like you're a saint, she said, tears spilling now. They forget I grew up with nothing. I clawed my way into this world. Nobody saved me. She pointed at Mark. He had you. You paid for his first car, his college, his security deposit. My parents couldn't even pay the electricity half the time. I went to school smelling like kerosene heaters and stale cigarettes. And when I finally got out, when I finally built something, you showed up with your lottery tickets and made us all your charity case. There it was, the ugly, raw truth under all the snide comments. Everything we have is touched by you, she sobbed. The house, the club, this wedding. Everyone praises Grandma Helen, while I'm just the difficult daughter-in-law who doesn't appreciate anything. Do you know what that feels like? For a moment, the anger in me fizzled under a wave of something else. Understanding. I did know what it felt like to be the outsider, to be judged on what you didn't have. I just hadn't realized she was still living in that place, even standing in a designer dress in my chandeliered ballroom. Kara, I said softly, I never wanted to make you feel small. I wanted to make sure my family never had to feel as scared as I once felt. But you're right about one thing. She sniffed wary. What? I don't owe you money. I don't owe you a lifestyle. I do owe myself respect. And I owe Lily a grandmother who doesn't let herself be mistreated in the name of keeping the peace. Lily stepped closer, voice shaky. Mom, I love you, but what you did tonight was wrong. Grandma has never been anything but kind to us. I'm not saying she's perfect, Kara snapped weakly. She meddles, she's dramatic, She shows up, Lily interrupted. She always shows up.
Tears slid down my cheeks then. It's one thing to stand up for yourself. It's another to have your granddaughter stand beside you.
The room felt like it was holding its breath. Mark looked between his wife and his mother. "Kara," he said quietly, "I didn't know Mom owned the club. I didn't know about the lottery. I sure as heck didn't know about the mortgage. But I know this. You were cruel tonight. Not just to Mom, to Lily, to me. You turned our daughter's wedding into a battlefield." Kara shook her head, crying. I'm sorry. Mark held up a hand. "I'm not asking you to grovel," he said. "I'm asking you to look around and decide who you want to be. The woman who doubles down on threats, or the one who says, 'I screwed up and I'm going to do better.'" He nodded toward me. "Mom's right about boundaries. We've taken advantage of her without even realizing it. That ends tonight. But so does using her as a scapegoat for our own fears." It was the most backbone I'd seen from him in years. Kara looked around, overwhelmed, at the guests, at her daughter in a lace dress, at her husband she'd just forced into a public choice. Then she did something I didn't expect. She walked over to me. Her mascara was a mess. Her voice shook. "I have been horrible to you," she said. "Not just tonight. For years. I was so busy trying not to be the poor girl again that I treated you like trash. I didn't want to owe you anything, so I pretended I didn't owe you respect either. I can't fix that in one apology," she went on, "and I don't expect you to trust me right away, but I am sorry for not inviting you, for yelling, for everything." I studied her face. A year ago, I probably would have folded instantly. "It's fine, dear, forget it," the peacemaker in me would have said. Then the cycle would have continued. 70-year-old me had learned a few things. "I accept your apology," I said, "but you're right, trust takes time. Tonight, I won't make any big decisions. Not about money, not about memberships, not about mortgages. I'll sleep on it. Tomorrow, we can talk like adults. Maybe with a therapist between us." Relief flickered across her features. "Okay." "And Kara," I added. "Yes, Lily is right. You matter. Not because of the house or the club or the dresses. You matter because you're her mother and my son's wife. But if you ever speak to me again the way you did tonight, I will pull every dollar and connection I have out from under you so fast you'll think the 2008 recession was a warm-up." A few guests actually chuckled nervously. They thought I was joking. Kara looked in my eyes and understood perfectly that I wasn't. "Fair," she whispered. Someone, bless that DJ, started playing soft background music again. Emma wiped her face, took a deep breath, and clapped her hands. "All right," she announced shakily. "That's enough real-life drama. Can we please go back to the scheduled program of dancing, cake, and pretending we're all normal?" Laughter rippled through the room, easing the tension. Ethan pulled her to the center of the floor. The band launched into their first dance song, a slow, sweet thing that made half the room tear up. Slowly, conversations resumed, plates were refilled, phone cameras slid back into pockets, though I guarantee you half a dozen group chats were buzzing under those tablecloths. Kara slipped off to the restroom with a bridesmaid to fix her face. Mark sat beside me for the first time in years like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Mom," he said quietly, "I don't know whether to hug you or hide under the table. Do both. Just don't spill champagne on this dress. It still remembers 1974. He laughed, then grew serious. "Why didn't you tell me about the lottery?" I asked gently. Would it have changed how you treated me? He opened his mouth, closed it, thought about it. "Yeah," he admitted finally,
It probably would have. I would have called more, visited more, asked for advice, but I don't like what that says about me. That, I said, squeezing his hand, is why I didn't tell you. He nodded slowly. I'm proud of you, Mark. Not for marrying rich or working hard or owning a clinic. I'm proud of you for finally standing up for what's right tonight. He blinked fast. I should have done it sooner. Maybe, but you did it now. That's what matters.
You're probably wondering what happened after the music died and the cake was cut. I wish I could tell you that everything was magically fixed, that we all attended family therapy the next morning and lived happily ever after. Real life isn't a fairy tale. But it also isn't hopeless. A week after the wedding, Mark and Kara came to my house. Not the big suburban one, my little place on the east side that still smells faintly of coffee and lemon polish. They brought Lily and Ethan. There were awkward hugs, stiff backs, 2 loud comments about the weather. Then Kara looked around my tiny living room at the mismatched thrift store furniture and the framed photos of Mark with missing teeth and pudding on his face. I always assumed you stayed here because you couldn't do better, she said quietly. I stayed because it's home. Money changes your options. It doesn't have to change your values. She nodded slowly. I talked to a therapist 3 times this week. She says I have scarcity trauma, that I hoard status and control because I'm still that kid who got laughed at for wearing thrift store shoes. I'm very fond of thrift store shoes, I said, but I'm glad you're talking to someone. We want to pay you back for the mortgage, the loans, the club membership. You can't, not in dollars, but you can pay me back in something more valuable. What's that? Asked Lily. Respect, I said. Transparency. No more secrets. No more decisions about me without me. And no more using my money to paper over problems you should be facing together. They agreed. I met with my lawyer. We adjusted a few things. I stopped secretly paying their bills. I set up a clear written loan for the business guarantee so Mark could buy me out over time. I created a college fund for any future great-grandchildren, but in my name, not as a surprise. And I kept owning Willow Creek. Kara joined me for lunch one afternoon, just the 2 of us. No audience, no gowns, just 2 women and a salad bar. She looked out at the terrace where Lily had set her vows. I always wanted a day like that. I just thought if I didn't control every inch of it, it would disappear. Control is a funny thing, I said. The tighter you squeeze, the faster everything slips through your fingers. She smiled sadly. You're going to make a therapist very proud quoting things like that. I shrugged. I've lived long enough to earn a few cliches.
So, that's the story of how my daughter-in-law tried to throw me out of my own country club and ended up exposed in front of half the county. But if you think my favorite part was watching her face when she realized who owned the place, you'd be only half right. The best part wasn't the power move, it was what came after. My granddaughter learned she can stand up to her parents with love and honesty. My son finally saw the difference between keeping the peace and living in truth. And I learned that being generous doesn't mean rolling over and letting people wipe their feet on you. Money didn't give me that lesson. Age did. The lottery simply gave me a microphone. If you were in my shoes, sensible and slightly orthopedic, what would you have done at that wedding? Would you have stayed quiet to avoid the scene or stood your ground like I did? Tell me in the comments and let me know where in the world you're listening from. And if you like stories where grandmas aren't as helpless as they look, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Your voice matters, and so does your worth.